Do you ever feel like you don't know whether to intercept a shot or leave it for your partner? Or that you can never play a good shot from your interceptions?
Well, in this video, we're going to share 7 rules for intercepting at the net, so you can go from feeling like that to feeling like this. Being able to intercept at the right time will not only help your partner out, but it will give your opponents less time to react and put them under more pressure, helping you to win more points as a result. So let's get started with rule number 1, where to stand.
A lot of people actually get their positioning wrong, so we're going to break down the fundamentals, including 2 common mistakes and 1 surprising tip.
So, which side should you stand on? Well, there's no definitive right answer here, but let's show you 2 scenarios which will hopefully give you a better understanding. Scenario 1 is when your opponents have lifted, and you know your partner is in a good, threatening position at the back. Here, you should stand slightly further over to the side that your partner is on, and we'll go through why you should do this in the next rule.
But scenario 2 is when your opponents have lifted, and this time your partner is off balance and in trouble at the back. You would now stand slightly to the other side because your partner is likely to play a worse shot, and your opponents will want to hit into the big gap on the other side of the court. And standing slightly to this side means you're more likely to be able to intercept this shot.
Bearing those 2 scenarios in mind, you should almost never be stood in the middle of the court. And this is the first common mistake people make. If you only ever stand in the middle, it makes it really difficult to intercept, unless your opponents hit it straight to you. And it also makes it difficult for your partner to know which side to cover, which results in them having to cover both sides.
So to be able to help your partner out and intercept these shots, you also need to know how far back you should stand. And our second common mistake is that people often stand too close to the net.
Yeah, being too close makes it more difficult to react in time, leading to you either mistiming it or missing it completely. As we've shown in a previous video, being stood too close like this means I could only get around 50% of Greg's shots back. But being stood around here, which is roughly where we'd recommend standing to intercept shots, means I could then intercept almost every shot.
Now for our potentially surprising point. Can you notice a difference between these 2 clips? Most of you will typically have your feet side by side like this, which makes you faster when moving side to side. But because we want to move slightly backwards for some interceptions, having your feet like this at a slight diagonal in line with the corner that you think the shuttle is going to go will help you be much faster and therefore more likely to intercept the shuttle. It's kind of a similar concept to returning the flick serve. You wouldn't be stood with your feet side by side. But this tip, and actually this whole rule, will depend on our second rule, and this is to be aware of where your partner is hitting their shot to.
Yeah, and this is a really important rule, because being aware of your partner's likely shots should actually change where you stand. So we're going to give you 3 tips to help you master this, as well as 1 common mistake that people make.
So firstly, if your partner is playing lots of soft drop shots and your opponents are taking it late, then it's almost impossible for them to play a flat lift, and the most likely reply is either a net shot or a high lift. This means it's almost pointless for you to be stood all the way back here, and instead you should be much closer to the net.
The second tip is to add some set plays to create an interception opportunity. Like we mentioned earlier, if your partner is in a good position and you move slightly to the same side, your partner can hit a straight smash down the tramline because the most likely reply is a straight shot, which you can then intercept. But there's 1 common mistake that's preventing you from doing these set plays, and that's a lack of communication with your partner. You can't get angry at your partner for smashing down the middle and not setting up your amazing interception because you didn't tell them to smash straight. And these same principles apply if your partner has played a mid-court shot and you're at the net, or if you've hit the previous shot.
The third tip is to listen to the sound of your partner's strings as they're hitting, as this is the best way to figure out what shot they're playing. To keep it simple, a louder sound is typically a smash, which means the shuttle is more likely to come back harder so you can intercept it. And a softer sound would typically be a drop shot, where you then might move your position forward slightly. What a lot of people do to see what shot their partner is hitting is turn around, but we wouldn't recommend this. Firstly, because it's dangerous, and secondly, you can't keep an eye on what your opponents are doing, which is actually our third rule.
Yeah, watching what your opponents are doing will help you decide how far back to stand and also where to stand. For example, if you see your opponent coming in with a straight arm and one slow motion like this, they're more likely to block the shuttle, so you'd want to be stood closer to the net. Whereas, if they look like they're preparing with a big backswing, this means they're more likely to hit the shuttle hard, and you can then be ready to intercept it.
Seeing these cues from your opponent's body and racket positioning will hugely improve your ability to intercept shots. And this is why players like Hendra Setuan, the oldest player on the World Tour, can still win so many games. He has an unbelievable ability to read his opponents and intercept their shots.
Yeah, so try to learn to read your opponents. And this will also help you in uncertain scenarios, because there's not always a right or wrong way to move or shot to go for in badminton.
Being aware of where your partner is going to hit it, and also being able to read your opponents, will help with our fourth rule, having the correct racket positioning.
Firstly, we'd recommend being in a relaxed forehand grip for almost all interceptions, no matter which side the shuttle is on. This is because you should actually rarely change to a backhand grip to intercept the shot, because it takes too long. And this means you won't be taking the shuttle as early, and therefore won't be able to play an aggressive shot.
So, where exactly should you have your racket? Well, this is up for debate, and we've made an entire video on this topic. But in general, we recommend having your elbow up as your opponent is about to hit it. This means that you'll be faster to the shuttle, and it will help you play a better shot.
But you will see a lot of players, especially pro players, with their rackets seemingly by their ankles, and they still seem to intercept just fine. Well, this is because they have lightning fast reactions and racket speed, so they're able to bring their arm up as their opponent hits it. If you can also be successful doing this, then that's fine. But for most players, us included, it's usually better to have your racket ready earlier, aka just as your opponent is about to hit their shot.
Remembering rule 2 and 3, you should have your racket positioning higher if your partner hits a steeper shot, as the shuttle is likely to come back higher. In contrast, you should have your racket a bit lower if your partner plays a flatter smash or drive.
Okay, moving on. Our fifth rule to improve your net interceptions is to improve your reactions. The previous 4 rules have largely been about your predictive mechanisms and anticipation to help you intercept better. But improving your pure reaction speed will also help. We've actually done an entire video on 4 fun ways to improve your reactions, so we'll include that in the description below if you want to check it out after this.
Yeah, and before we get on to the last and possibly most important rule, our penultimate rule, rule 6, is that you need to practice. You wouldn't expect to pass your driving test without ever having driven a car, so how can you expect to intercept well without practicing beforehand?
Yeah, so we're now going to give you 2 different ways you can practice. The first focuses on your technique, and this is where someone hits in one shuttle at a time, hard but in an upwards direction. We'd recommend starting by doing this on one side only, and then moving to the other side.
To practice the random element of interceptions, once you've mastered the technique, you can try our second practice. For this, you need 3 people, where a feeder lifts, your partner is behind you and smashes at the feeder, and then the feeder hits a drive for you to try and intercept. This is where you can practice improving your predictive mechanisms by looking for the straight interception if your partner smashes straight, or maybe the cross-court interception if your partner smashes down the middle.
And the final rule is that to become a master of net interceptions, you need to take risks, both in training and in matches.
Yeah, you won't always make the right decision, but you'll learn over time what are the right and wrong shots to go for. Although, as we've mentioned, there's not always a right or wrong way to move or shot to go for in badminton, and even the pros don't get it right 100% of the time. But what's 10 times worse than taking a risk and occasionally getting it wrong is just being stood in the middle and not doing anything.
By the way, at the time of filming this video, we're so close to reaching 400,000 subscribers, and by the time we release it, we're hoping to have hit it. So firstly, a huge thank you to you all for the support and for watching our videos. To celebrate reaching this huge milestone, we want to do a special Q&A and giveaway video. So if you have any questions for us, then please ask them in the comments down below and stay tuned for that.
And in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, please drop it a like, smash the subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you on another video very soon. Bye.
Bye.